Hey everybody. I just really want to talk about something really important that's been going on with my life. I really don't know how to describe it, but I really want to reflect on my whole the entire period that I've been playing the harmonica and look back on it with both in fond memories and in total moments of and in moments of total cringe at myself. So I really want to dive into my personal. I want to dive into my harmonica journey, and I really want to showcase how far I've grown in terms of playing music. What you just heard me play was this little Horner Gold melody in the key of F. I love this harp to death. It's such a good key. So I originally started music mainly as an escape from the whole. Oh, my thing is almost out of batteries, so it's I use music to really escape some very hard times in my life, mainly with singing and songwriting and stuff like that. My In terms of musical background in my family, my both my mom and my my most of the girls in my family were either in band for a brief period of time, or in choir, or either in band, choir, or both. So that's not just in my immediate family, but also in my extended family too. I always had a really deep fascination with music, and I really always write my own songs and stuff like that. And I would eventually come across the harmonica in England. I've told this countless times, but for example, in going down, the song that introduced me to the harmonica in a way I have never heard it before was the Garth Brooks song "Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up." I can actually play. Hopefully I won't get copyright struck and blocked worldwide by just me playing the solo. So this is the first solo I ever heard on the harmonica that really caught my attention to the instrument. Yeah, so I would just hear this raw, intense, loud, wailing sounds on the harmonica. I thought it was incredibly cool. I did originally hate it at first because I wasn't used to that kind of sound, but I really love getting into that really gritty, intense blues style playing of players like the harmonica player that played on that track was Terry McMillan, and I do cite him as my biggest influence in regards to playing the harmonica and stuff, for that raw, emotional, intense playing. And I originally technically started out playing harmonica in 2010, but I don't really consider that my actual starting year. But I actually picked up a little booklet and toy harmonica that was a 10-hole diatonic. I remember it being clearly a 10-hole diatonic from First Act, and it really didn't explain things all that well. Looking back on it in hindsight. And for example, it talked about in terms of like blowing and drawing, what we would call in harmonic speak is like blowing and drawing, which is like basically breathing in and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out of the harmonica. The book described it as using hot air and cold air. I don't know. I don't know about that because I would try to change the temperature of my breathing because like I tend to be a literal thinker if things are not explained clearly enough. So I would just only blow on the harmonica, not even realizing about not even noticing like and not even being told about the draw notes and like all those soulful bends like this. Yeah, like that's like a lot of the sounds I wanted to get out of the harmonica really involved like those deep kind of like raspy sounding bends. And I always loved like that kind of style of playing. I do like I eventually gave up a little bit on the harmonica for like but I would say it's more like a sabbatical more than a real giving up thing. Like I feel like my biggest mistake as a harmonica player like so early on was was getting good instructional material is probably the best thing you can do. A lot of harmonica instructional material I always say about like a lot of stuff is like not really all that like it's not really talked about in like it's so much it's like actually more so I feel like I need to like explain things more in plain language whenever I do my harmonica philosophy stuff, you know. And I really love and I was never even taught about bending until I eventually rediscovered the harmonica in like say around end of middle school, early high school, like 8th grade, ninth grade, somewhere around that time. And I eventually got interested in blues music around that time. Again, this is also a Horner Golden Melody I am using right here. I know it's absolute heresy to use golden melodies for blues, but hey, I just doing my own thing right here. So I would just hear just like the okay, I just like like sort of like the tongue blocking like Chicago kind of style stuff. Like I also want to like I really wanted to like combine like a lot of the traditional blues stylings with like a lot of stuff Terry McMillan was doing. I think it would have been like a really cool combination to do that. And so I eventually got interested in in late December 2018, I actually got my first ever pro grade harmonica. I don't have it with me to show you because it's all the way in like my little thing, like my little cartridge stuff. I still have the first harmonica. I actually currently my first pro grade harmonica, which is a Progressive Era Honer Special 20. I think it's been like nearly 7 years since I've actually started taking harmonica seriously, and I really enjoy like a lot of the harmonica that I really grew to love, like harmonicas like during like the beginner phase, like I'd say like the first 2 to 3 years of playing, I really got to know more. I really got to like handle some of the basics down, but I really just ended up sounding, in my opinion, very mediocre. And it was mainly due to my crippling self-esteem, because I know that nobody's gonna like the same things I like. And it's always like people always criticizing me that a lot of the stuff they find to be art and a lot of the stuff I find to be art is different, and therefore I'm wrong. That's so stupid. So, like, I feel like I, like, started getting into, like, more country harmonica again in, say, around the middle of the pandemic. Like, I was, like, I had just graduated high school. I was, like, stuck in my room all the time because, you know, pandemic things. And I eventually got really interested in learning, like, more like the acoustic blues style and, like, country music again. Primarily through, like, I, like, would listen, like, to day and night, like, go through, like, a lot of, like some of the videos of, like, Terry McMillan playing on like things like Nashville Now and stuff like that. Like, I've learned, and even like but I still felt like I was limited in my capabilities because, well, I came from a blues, like, more like a lot of the stuff I had learned from playing the blues, like, I felt like it would like some of them would transfer over, but I feel like I was just so in awe by how Terry played that I often compared myself to him in a negative light. Like, I would say things like, I will never be that good and stuff like that. And a lot of people reinforced those negative feelings I had about myself. Like, like my biggest advice, other than, you know, get good instructional material, there's the biggest, that would be just, like, be wary of trolls and people who will always bring you down. I, like, essentially growing up in the internet age as, like, a teenager, I eventually had to, like, learn that not everybody acts or believes in the same things that you do. And ironically enough, there's still people who still believe that everybody should actually act the way they do, both in and outside the harmonica community. So I often, like, was extremely frustrated that I wasn't able to do the things I wanted to do. I didn't think it was much so poor technique or anything like that, like a lot of these people would tell me. Or that I was, like, stuck in, like, with, like, no knowledge of, like, music, like, no actual knowledge of music theory. I had learned intervals during choir, and learned how to read sheet music, but I wasn't really, like, into, like, a lot of music theory. I just learned a lot of the basics about music theory. And I would often I just often, like, feel like I would just say, like, during this time around, like near the end of the pandemic until, like, maybe, like, mid 2022, I was often judged for, like, having country influences that weren't Charlie McCoy. Specifically, I was listening to, like, a lot of players like Terry McMillan and stuff like that. But I really wanted to integrate Terry's style into blues, which a lot of people absolutely don't like for some reason. Yeah, because a lot of people online, especially in the blues harmonica community or just in the blues space in general, apparently a lot of the stuff that involves the harmonica in blues music, people for some reason do not want it to evolve for some reason. I was constantly told, like, even when I share stuff that people don't find to be real blues or stuff like that. Like, that I should be listening to, like, only, like, electric blues and stuff like that. Like, only, like, a lot of the Chicago players. Like, people say I need, like, a lot of... And people would disrespect my music taste because I just happen to like a player who I find to be pretty bluesy, but not a lot of people would like because, well, he isn't a traditional blues guy. I really like finding harmonica players that would be considered to be, that would be or are considered to be quote unquote unorthodox or not real blues, because I really love, like, I always love, like, diving into, like, unique approaches to, like, different instruments and stuff like that. I always love players who break the mold, or, like, who are trailblazers and or innovators in, like, in their instruments. So I would just, like, I viewed Terry as an innovator of his style, of, like, his, like, for a country harmonica. And a lot of people didn't like the fact that I didn't like Charlie McCoy or Little Walter. I feel like a lot of the stuff had to do with my thing. With the Little Walter thing, it was mainly just, it's just very much an overhyped thing, that he's very overhyped. I understand his influence on the blues harmonica scene, but please search for more harmonica players. Like, not everybody needs to imitate Little Walter. Not everybody needs to imitate Charlie McCoy. Like, I just feel like a lot of people would just push this ideology that if you're gonna be successful as a harmonica player, you have to imitate only the successful harmonica players that have sold, like, millions of records and stuff like that. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to be myself, follow my own sound, and do things that I wanted to do in terms of my playing. I just didn't want to just beat around the bush and just would constantly be stressed out over who I should sound like, what gear I should have, and, like, stuff like that. I just basically did my own thing. And people get pissed off at me for that. I honestly have no idea why people hate on others who try to innovate on the harmonica. I feel like it just stems from, like, the blues purist ideology and stuff, that everything has to be, like, traditional, a lot of, like, post-war Chicago blues. But I always feel like that the harmonica is more so a medium for my creative expression. And I would just really would like to use it more so as, like, a creative tool of sorts. I use it more so as a tool more than a actual, not so much of a, I use it more as a tool for, like, creating music instead of, like, something that's just, like, more like a one-off sort of thing. Like, I basically grew up around harmonica music, but I never really thought that I would be able to, like, actually get to the level I am right now. And so I remember one day on Facebook, that's, like, the biggest problem right there, Facebook. So I was on a Facebook group and I was asking people if they can give some advice on how I could sound like Terry. A lot of people would get pissed off at me because I really wanted to learn his stuff, but people think I wasn't putting in the work or just ignoring advice, but I was just genuinely curious. I honestly had no idea that asking for advice and, like, asking questions would make people think that you're a manipulative asshole, but apparently people in power do. I was told that I like a lot of people would say that Terry McMillan stuff's basic and stuff like that, but for me, as like getting into like the intermediate phase, I feel like a lot of the harmonica stuff that I wanted to do wasn't much so easy as a lot of those quote unquote pro players like to believe. I was even told once to give up the harmonica. I was basically told to give up. And I literally told that person, I literally told them, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to show everybody that I can play. And that really just set my goal from now on. Like, really wanted to, like, since I like, in 2022, like in July, I started taking lessons from Todd Parrott. And the great thing about him was not only was he a very approachable guy, but he like really spoke in layman's terms, or just like plain language. And I would just get easily sucked into like a lot of the playing and stuff. Like I would go into all these playlists and deep dives and just like build a lot of the Terry McMillan playlists I built like from searching his session work and stuff like that. Like that's why I love sites like Discogs and All Music and stuff. It's just I really like try to like dig into like a harmonica player's catalog and just like trying to hack into their playing mindset, hack into their mindset when playing. That's what I would describe it as, like a hacking into their mindset when it comes to like playing harmonica. And then in I'd say 2024, I actually played my first ever live show. I actually have it posted on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll link it. Hashtag hey, shameless self promo. and I actually got, and I keep coming back for gigs with the band that I'm playing in. In fact, I am playing a gig coming up soon in April. And then earlier this year, I felt like with the more recent times, I felt like I was constantly stuck in a rut. I couldn't like think clearly. And I eventually got interested in listening to more harmonica players. Like even outside of genres that I wouldn't think I would actually like. And this is where we are currently, where I'm currently at in my harmonica journey. I'm just like exploring like different ideas and stuff revolving the harmonica. And like, I actually have been listening to like a couple of more unorthodox players, and because again, like the whole like pushing against the blues purist ideology. And I've been listening to like a lot of Norton Buffalo lately. I absolutely love his stuff. He described himself as he really didn't put a label on his music. He had like the mindset of, I'm not XYZ harmonica player, I'm just a harmonica player. Because he like took in like a lot of influences from like different genres and like different instruments and stuff. I really like inspired to have like that sort of mindset when it comes to the harmonica. And I'll leave it at that since my iPad's almost dead. So anyways, I'll see you all next time. Bye!